Welcome to Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico. I'm your host, Steve Ricardo, coming to you from the New Alliance Music and Art Complex in beautiful Union Square, Somerville, Massachusetts. It's unusual, but I'm flying solo today. But I do have Dorchester's own Herb Morsiglio. Ow! Manning the board, and if he wants to hop on the mic anytime, he knows he can. Okay, I'm going to start you off with something a little different today. Some time ago, I finished a book tentatively entitled IRS, which stands for Independent Record Scum, which I've yet to publish for various reasons. Today, this is going to be a universal debut. I'm going to share a few chapters from the book with you. So buckle up and get ready, because here I come. I'm going to do some early chapters in the book. They're short chapters. This is chapter 2. It's called Herb Alpert, Tom Jones, and the Banana Splits. Long before college radio, there were those early years living on High Street in Webster, Mass. with my family. My earliest education and gateway to music started at home. My mother was born in Italy and was moderately into music, and even though my father played the accordion when he was younger, music really wasn't a very big part of our lives. Their record collection consisted of Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass, Sergio Mendes and the Brazil 66, Mario Lanza, and a few country titles. And of course, every young housewife's heartthrob in the 60s, the obligatory Tom Jones albums. Radio was irrelevant in our household, but the whole family would sit in front of the black and white TV, and then slowly it became color, and enjoy TV shows like The Monkees, The Partridge Family, and The Banana Splits, which, believe it or not, was one of my favorites, even though it was a cartoon. I can remember that special feeling I would get from watching these shows. At an early age, I could feel that music was going to play a big part in my life. Certain songs and artists started to get to me. When I was barely 5 years old, the whole family got together at my grandparents' house next door, and we watched the Beatles' debut performance on the Ed Sullivan Show. I remember all the kids sitting in front of the black and white TV and seeing the Fab Four for the first time. It was truly something. My favorite Beatle from the beginning was John. That moment, along with the assassinations of John and Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr., were the most memorable events that I can actually recall from my early childhood. Chapter 3, Penny Lane is in my ears and in my eyes. Once my parents realized that I like music, they bought my sister and brother and I an album and a 45 to listen to. The album was the debut Monkees album, and the 45 was the Beatles' Penny Lane with the flip side Strawberry Fields. We wore those records out. I remember listening to them over and over again and reading the lyrics and singing along. It was just the beginning of a fascination of music that never went away from me. I started to take guitar lessons, but my hands just weren't made to play the guitar for some reason. I could play, but my head was not into the hard work and the perseverance that was needed at that early age. Later, I did revisit it, but not back then. I just couldn't keep up with my teacher. I always felt that there was a place for me behind the scenes, though, and I played the hockey stick in front of the mirror with a real vengeance. There really wasn't anyone in my neighborhood that had a lot of music or influenced me much either. I have faint memories of us listening to Aerosmith Dream On with some other kids on our block secretly because, quote, they were on drugs, and none of our parents allowed us to have that 45. It wasn't until years later on High Street that I met a trio of guys who I remember as my early teachers of rock and roll. Chapter 4, EC, Mahogany Rush, and the Next Dylan. Three completely different guys who ran in completely different circles were my main music teachers, so to speak. Peter Starzik, Jeff Willie Stefanik, and Willie Costin all played significant roles in helping me discover new musical avenues. It was these guys that really gave me the knowledge that led to my major interest at times would become a remarkable obsession. You have to understand, back then in the 70s, there was no internet, limited radio, and little awareness of what was happening musically, especially in Webster, which was outside of Worcester and about an hour from Boston. Peter was a huge fan of British blues-based rock and adored everything about Eric Clapton. He would play me a variety of music, from the Yardbirds to Cream to Derek and the Dominoes to the Blues Breakers. For a kid who was barely 16 at the time, Peter knew everything about the English rock scene of the 60s. Jeff, or Willie as we like to call him, was more of a singer-songwriter fan who liked Dylan and first played me a solo record by a guy named Springsteen. It was okay, but it didn't blow me away. But still, it was different and interesting. But I still admired the man, and it got my attention. The last guy, the other Willie Costin, was several years older than us and was a fucking pot-smoking madman that worshipped guys like Frankie Marino of Mahogany Rush. In fact, one time we went to see Kansas at the Providence Civic Center only because Mahogany Rush was the opening act and we had front row seats. The three of those guys were diverse and kept me interested in their own way with their own styles. One thing I never did was turn my back on other people's musical taste, nor did I go along with the crowd just to go along. I started going to a lot of concerts in the late 70s with mostly a trio of my buddies from nearby Oxford, Mass, Bobby Carlson, Paul Bolio, and Kenny Berry, and anyone else who was up for a show and invited me to come along. I would try to go. I'd go to every show I could go to. We smoked a lot of weed. Sometimes we took mushrooms or mescaline. We would do anything to get buzzed out and ready for the rock. There was nothing that took priority at that time in my life over going to concerts. My first real concert was Jethro Tull and the Jay Giles Band at Colt Park in Hartford, which was an outdoor venue. These weren't bands that I loved, but I do remember listening to Aqualung a lot back then. From that point on, I saw Aerosmith several times, Neil Young and Crazy Horse, Steve Miller, Alice Cooper, Leonard Skinner, Edgar and Johnny Winter, The Outlaws, Kansas, Rick Derringer, Mahogany Rush, Kiss, Thin Lizzy, Steppenwolf, The Cars, and of course the greatest live band of all time, Queen. There was usually a big concert every month or so, either in Providence, Springfield, or at the old Boston Garden. We would save our cash, buy a bunch of weed and whatever else, and make a day and night out of it. This, to me, was the greatest thrill a teenage kid could have, even more than girls. Can't believe I wrote that, but I did. I remember one of us would get the tickets and we would count the days until the next concert. It was all we cared about, or maybe all I cared about. Chapter 5, Sheer Heart Attack. Around the time that I was 17, Queen had become by far my favorite band. I spent hours in front of a mirror in my basement singing along the songs from the Sheer Heart Attack album and the Night at the Opera albums. I loved Freddie from the very first time I heard Keep Yourself Alive. What was ironic was that at the time, I was the only real Queen fan at my high school, Bartlett High School. Everyone else was into Kiss, except for Peter, of course, who, like me, didn't seem to take Kiss seriously at all. The guys I hung around with would never let me play my Queen 8-tracks or albums, so I listened to Kiss Alive and Rock and Roll Over and smoked weed with them every fucking day, unless, of course, I was at Peter's house. And then it was Cream, more Cream, and Derek and the Dominoes. I didn't care because I knew I loved rock and roll, and Peter worshipped Clapton the same way I worshipped Freddie Mercury. Besides, I could listen to Kiss all day and night and know exactly what it was. Bubblegum music. I did write that. And laugh it off knowing bands like Queen and Cream were far superior in the talent department. Of course, I never said that to the guys that hung out in Peony, short for Peanut, LeBlanc's trailer, or they would have made fun of me and kicked my ass out and threw me out. They would have kicked my ass out the door. So I knew all the lyrics from Rock and Roll Over just to be safe. That album was okay, I guess. Well, there you have it. Chapters 2 to 5 from independent Record Scum. We're going to play a song right now by the band Tiger Bomb. This one is called Baby Come On. Take it away, Herb.
Well, come on now, maybe won't you take a chance? You might get lucky looking for a man, so come on, come on, come on. Yeah, baby, come on, come on, come on, come on. Well, say yeah, baby, 'cause it's up to you. I'll say I'm gonna show and tell you, honey, what you do, so come on, come on, come on.
That was the Portland, Maine-based band Tiger Bomb, who have been working hard for a few years now. I think they started around maybe 2014. The hard work's starting to pay off for them. I tell you, a really good band, really good garage rock band. The band is fronted by two girl group legends together for the first time, Linda Mandolin of San Francisco's Fabulous Disaster and Chris Horn of The Brood. They have combined forces and a new rock and pop sound explosion. Tiger Bomb is an all-girl feline frenzy that fuses catchy original garage pop songs with tight harmonies, ferocious guitars, and a high-energy attitude for a P-U-R-R, perfectly, get it? Captivating experience. Watch out, they're on the prowl and coming your way. I didn't write this. The band sent me this. It's good stuff. Another paragraph from them. Their debut LP, Uproar, features 14 songs mastered by the renowned Slaughter Joe Foster, My Bloody Valentine, Jesus Mary Chain Gang, really cool bands, and comes wrapped in original cover art painted by Lisa Petruzzi from Something Weird Video in her infamous Little Kittles style. Liner notes by the esteemed rock music writer Jeff Tomarkin from Goldmine Magazine, pop musician Paul Collins from The Beat and the Nerves, and popular international radio personalities Mal Thursday and Palmira Del Rey. Great stuff there from Tiger Bomb. Shout out to Geets Romo, who first turned me on to the band and has been working with them for a while. Okay. It's been a really troubling time the last few months, and it all started to come to a head for me a couple weeks ago. I heard the words of all people, Doc Rivers, Jalen Brown, and Kenny Smith, all African Americans associated with the National Basketball Association, and the way they were reacting to the fact that in all these years, blacks are still not being treated equally, it really hit me hard. It's embarrassing to live in such a racist country, which has become worse the last 4 years, and I think you all know why. So in my own way, I needed to become even more aware than I already was, and I started listening to blues and soul and black artists. Not that I hadn't before, but now I was really into it. These are the ones that are responsible for the birth of rock and roll. It's true when they say the blues had a baby and they named it rock and roll. There's never been a truer statement. I wish I knew who said that. It could have been Muddy Waters. What performers of color have gone through over the years is beyond compare. Little Walter died after a fight. Police said evidence of external injuries was so insignificant that the police reported that his death was due to unknown or natural causes. He was only 38 years old. Sonny Boy Williamson I was shot and killed. Marvin Gaye was murdered by his father. Sam Cooke shot and killed. King Curtis stabbed to death. I mean, it's a long list. Right now, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the life and career of Bobby Womack, who symbolizes all this better than everyone, a bit better than all these people, really. He grew up in a way that is not unfamiliar for most blacks in America. Grew up in very bad circumstances and had to endure to make it. I watched a documentary and did a bunch of editing, a bunch of reading, and this is what I came up with after the documentary. He was born in 1944 in Cleveland, Ohio. He grew up in the slums with his four brothers who all shared one bed in one room while their parents lived in the living room. He learned to play his father's guitar, and because he was left-handed, he played it upside down. By the time he was 10 years old, he was playing with his brothers in a gospel group called the Womack Brothers. Then the great Sam Cooke came along, saw the group, and helped them get a tour with the Staple Singers. Bobby dropped out of high school at the age 16. The brothers eventually signed with Cooke's label and changed their name to the Valentinos, and they relocated to L.A. Cooke produced their first single, Looking for Love, which you might know later became a hit song for the Jay Giles Band, and It's All Over Now, which later was recorded by the Faces and the Rolling Stones, who also made it a hit. The Valentinos were in turmoil when Sam Cooke was shot and killed in his L.A. motel room. At only 19 years old, Bobby married Sam Cooke's widow, which caused a great deal of backlash, including a severe beating at the hands of Cooke's brothers, in which his jaw was broken and he was boycotted from all radio stations because they felt that he was trying to move in on Sam Cooke's territory, and including his wife, which he's did. Between 1965 and 68, he played and toured with Ray Charles. He also played guitar on several Aretha Franklin records. And in 1968, Bobby signed with Mint Records and had a hit with the cover of the Mamas and Papas song California Dreamin'. He also wrote Breezing for George Benson. And check this out. He wrote Trust Me with Janis Joplin. In fact, it was reported that Bobby Womack was the last person to see Janis Joplin alive the night she overdosed on heroin. They were friends and they were hanging out, and he never saw her again. No one ever did. His solo career took off in 1972, and he had a flurry of successes that lasted until 1985. One of those songs, Across 110th Street, reemerged later as a hit in the Quentin Tarantino film Jackie Brown. If you've seen the film Jackie Brown, the end of the film is she's singing along with the song 110th Street, which is Bobby Womack's biggest masterpiece. Here's where the story gets a little crazy. A serious drug addiction slowed Bobby's career down for about the next 10 years, but he came back in the mid-90s with the album aptly called Resurrection, which was released by Ronnie Wood's label. In fact, Rod Stewart, Wood, Keith Richards, Charlie Watts, and the great Ronnie Isley all played on the album, along with Bobby's brothers Curtis, Friendly, and Cecil, who all contributed background vocals. He then went on to work with Todd Rundgren, The Roots, The Gorillaz, Van Morrison, and many others. His personal life was very turbulent. In 1970, his marriage with Barbara Cook ended when she said he had molested her 17-year-old daughter. Barbara fired a gun at Womack, which grazed him in the head, and they were divorced and they never spoke again. Usually happens when your wife shoots you. You usually split up. He married 2 more times after that and had a total of 6 kids. One of them committed suicide at the age 21. Another died at the age of 4 months, which caused him to free fall into cocaine addiction. In 1974, Bobby's brother, Harry Womack, was fatally stabbed in the neck with a steak knife by his girlfriend, Patricia Wilson, in a jealous rage. She had found another woman's clothes in a room he was occupying at Bobby's house. Turned out that the clothes actually belonged to Bobby's girlfriend. After his brother's deaths, Bobby established the Harry James Womack Memorial Scholarship Fund in his memory. The $50,000 scholarship fund was to aid minority students to complete college because Harry had always wished he had gone on and got a degree. Womack survived prostate cancer. A series of health problems would follow: diabetes, pneumonia, colon cancer, and early signs of Alzheimer's. Womack had developed diabetes in his later years. It was revealed in March 2012 that he was diagnosed with colon cancer after Bootsy Collins reported it on his Facebook page. Womack announced afterwards he was to undergo cancer surgery. On May 24, 2012, it was announced that Womack's surgery removed a tumor from his colon. It was successful and he was cancer-free. On January 1st, 2013, Womack admitted he had struggled to remember his songs and other people's names, and later he was diagnosed with the early stages of Alzheimer's. He played his final concert at Bonnaroo on June 14th, 2014, and then he died 2 weeks later. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2009. It's crazy. I knew about Bobby Womack, but I never really did research, and I researched his life, and that's what I came up with. There are many other stories like this. It's not been an easy plight for early blues, soul, and R&B singers in this country. Extremely challenging. And when you think about it, if it wasn't for the English rockers in the 60s all recording all these old blues songs, all of them, the Beatles, the Stones, Led Zeppelin, probably most of all, because Jimmy Page actually stole songs from old blues singers, which he later had to settle in lawsuits and make sure that they got paid for them. So I just wanted to spend a little time talking about what it was like in using Bobby Womack as an example for blacks to just prosper in just one field. That's just the music industry. Okay, we're going to change the pace a little bit here. Got a brand new song from Jersey City, New Jersey's own 50-Foot Furies. This one's called Charlottesville. Let it roll, Herb. Wow, I love that. I love the whole album, actually. That song was called Charlottesville, and yes, it's about what happened in Charlottesville. This is a very politically charged group. Riot Girl making a big comeback with 50-Foot Furies. It's from their brand new album called Miss America President. The band consists of Tracy Noel on vocals, Susan Luton on bass and vocals, guitar and keys is Erin Connors, and Felipe Torres from the Black Whale actually played drums on their record, which they recorded at Moonlight Mild Recordings by Michael Mobius. In a feature on bloodmakesnoise.net, excuse me, the band is described as follows. This is just a great description. If you take a little bit of Bikini Kill and mix it with the political lyrics of NoFX, Rage Against the Machine, and big helping of AOC, that's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you begin to approximate 50-Foot Furies. The band, born in Jersey City, became a staple of shows at Pet Shop, White Eagle Hall, and FM, where they blew the roof off the place on many occasions. They sure don't mince words or say anything other than exactly what's on their minds. Love this band. And I have to mention that based in Susan Luton, in the late 90s, she was in the band 3.5 Girls that I used to manage. And then she was in Boxcar Betty, her own band. And then Heidi, that ended up getting signed to Warner Brothers. She's a good friend, known each other for a long time. We first met when she was a student at Tufts University, right down the street from here. And she's been at it for years. She's really talented. She's basically a rock star. Susan Luton is a rock star, and I'm glad that she's doing so with this band. We love her. We couldn't be happy for her. She's also in the Black Whale, which is another cool band from New Jersey. Wow. What a show this has been. Our sponsor today is JLS Design. JLS Design does custom screen printing and embroidery. It's a great place to get t-shirts, hats, hoodies, masks, etc. In fact, they made our Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico t-shirts and masks, which are both very popular. You can reach JLS at jlsdesignprinting.com. jlsdesignsales@gmail.com. If you contact JLS and you tell them that Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico sent you, you'll get a 10% discount. And I know a few people that have been taking advantage of that. So please keep taking advantage of that. I did this before. I want to do it again. I want to take the opportunity to thank all the fine companies that have sponsored this podcast over the last year and a half. JLS Design, as we mentioned, the Dark Horse Pub in Somerville, Baby Loves Tacos in Pittsburgh, Moonbeam Cafe in Oakmont. Hi, Nina and Zach at Baby Loves Tacos, both of them great Pittsburgh people that are big fans of the show. If you're interested in sponsoring any of our shows, please contact us at twistedrico@gmail.com. Thanks again to our engineer, Dorchester's own Herb Morsiglio, and all our patrons whose monthly contributions keep the Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico podcast going. Kevin, Ellie, Maria, Chris W., Heather, Sue, Matt, Dave, Brian, Benjamin, Lee, Chad, Christopher, Kim, Hector, and Kelly. If you want to support the show, go to patreon.com/Twisted Rico. Please contact me at twistedrico@gmail.com or follow the Instagram page at Twisted Rico or on Twitter, Blowing Smoke BS. That's at Blowing Smoke BS. There's also a Facebook page, and you can find some of our shows on YouTube. This is Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico. I'm your host, Steev Ricardo. Till the next time we say goodbye, keep the rock and roll alive. We love you, Busy Phillips. Close it out. The Charms.